Good afternoon, participants. Welcome to Japan. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for traveling a long distance from Europe or South America or every place all over the world for this meeting. Uh, on behalf of the editorial board of the second Global Ocean Science Report, it's my great honor to give you some introduction about Global Ocean Science Report. There are many editors in here, and the reason why I'm standing here on behalf of the editorial board is simply I'm living in Japan, and most convenient probably for a person to ask me. So my presentation is on behalf of the editorial board, but partially just a private, personal thoughts is included. So not all the intervention I'm going here is the thoughts of the editorial board as a whole, but mostly my personal things. So before the Global Ocean Science Report 1 was published, there were no global mechanism for assessing and reporting on the level of human capacity, technology, or investment. As Kirsten introduced us briefly. But the Global Ocean Science Report 1, published in 2017, have had a very good impact on the development of SDGs. And the SDG 14.A was graded up from Tier 3 to Tier 2. And this is also a big impact in Japanese society too, because the Global Ocean Science Report 1 indicated some very characteristic oceanographic situation of Japanese society. Unfortunately, there are very few countries which reducing the investment to the science, ocean science. There are very few countries, the number of publications in oceanography is decreasing, and unfortunately, Japan are one of the few countries which is inside of that category. And the reason why is not the reflecting this Global Ocean Science Report the real situation of Japan, but hopefully, and the very serious investigation was carried out. Is this tendency is true or not? So now the statistics of Japan is probably very different for the Global Ocean Science Report 2. That is in the course of publication in 2020. But the other good or big footprint made by Global Ocean Science Report 1 is that it is translated to different languages and now distributed worldwide. It's the first time assessment of the status and trend of the ocean science. So it's a kind of the, say, Bible to refer understanding the situation of the ocean science in each country or in the global scale as a whole. And probably that will be always the first reference in the future for understanding or evaluating the status or situation of ocean science in the future. So how the GOSR1 was edited? Mainly it's a contribution or the voluntary providing of the data to the editorial board. And the major source is International Oceanographic Commission's questionnaire. But not that all, but the editorial board of the first report were surveyed or tried to get the information through a variety of sources. For example, IOC and UNESCO resources, previously published reports, articles, and of course UN and international or intergovernmental councils, FAOs, etc., etc., and online database. And some additional information was obtained from the participants list of, for example, Ocean Science Conference, etc., etc. So, gathering these informations and make the thick Bibles in 2017. And what was found in the first GOSR are maybe 10 points. One is it's a big science. It's a multidisciplinary science. And interestingly, the gender balance is very good. And the expenditure is very high. But not only the governmental, but alternative funding is benefits. And productivity is growing. Productivity means the number of publications. And international collaboration increases. And the data centers, services, multiple users communication with wide array of products, and science policy interaction can occur through many avenues. And national inventories on ocean science capacity exist only in few countries. So there are good points, but there are several concerns too. But let's see in detail a little bit. For example, if you see women's in ocean science, the ocean science, the women is very close to 50%, and the environmental science as a whole is clearly less than that. So oceanography is better for the equal genders. The marine scientists per million inhabitants is very different from country to country. The very high numbers in, for example, Belgium, or it's exceeding 70, and the lowest is only 1 person per million inhabitant. So the number of scientists, oceanographers per capita is very different from country to country. Per number of peoples is very different. And how much we spend for the oceanography is also very different from country to country. The highest is Croatia, which is extremely high, here we see. And the Norway is high, US is high, and some countries are very low. So we can see the difference of the country, and that will help, for example, keeping the high investment in the countries or increase the investment in low countries. And how big the ocean science is also different from what And the area of this map is reflecting how big the ocean science is in each country, and it is clearly not proportional to the real map. Means some countries are investing a lot for the ocean science, and some countries are less. The problem or concern we could find most is that the open data or not. You can see the uppermost column reflects the no restriction, which is very small compared to the number of data which has a restriction. We have to make the progress for this point. So the scientists, oceanographers need some actions for using this first global ocean science report. For example, support the data center in your region or in your country, facilitate the science cooperation, because the international cooperation papers is always more cited compared to the papers in the domestic authors. And also we need some funding supports, and to enhance such science funding supports, it's very important to make science policy interface. Based on these findings, and the second edition of Global Ocean Science Report is now under the preparation or drafting. The purpose or timeline of this second edition is to contribute for the decades or unit decades of ocean science for sustainable development. That will start from 2021. So this report, Global Ocean Science Report 2, should be published before this. And we are trying to finish our editing in 2020. And the content is not 100% the same. We are trying to add some additional features. For example, some reporting mechanism we made have new questionnaires. The editorial board meeting was held last year, and now the new Global Ocean Science Report questionnaire is now online. And as Kirsten showed, most of the countries have replied to that, but we need some additional input from the countries. And if your countries are not blue, please go back and ask your government or focal point to actively reply to these questionnaires. The deadline was February 15, but probably it is possible to input. And now it's the first quarter of 2019. It is a submission deadline for the data questionnaires, but also starting for the identification of co-authors and writing stuffs for this new report. There are some concerns for the additional authors for each chapters. And the drafting will start in the second to third quarter of this year. And the editorial board meeting will be hosted by the Tanzanian government in the second quarter of 2019. And writing will continue in this year, and probably the final draft will be ready in the first quarter of 20, or second quarter of next year. And that will certainly contribute to the next UN Decade of Oceans of the that starts 2021. Thank you very much for your attention.